One of the most impressive games of 2011 is Rage. Now, if you haven't heard of this game until now, it's likely because it's been overshadowed by some of the more popular first-person shooters. I'm talking, of course, about Modern Warfare 3 and Battlefield 3. Rage is a post-apocalyptic first-person shooter, and if you're wondering why fans are so eagerly anticipating this title, then consider this a primer of things to come. Here are 15 reasons why Rage is all the rage. Now, coming in at reason number 15 is Rage's story. The year is 2029, and a massive asteroid named Apophis has collided with the Earth, destroying much of its surface life. However, in the years leading up to the collision, governments have constructed these massive underground bunkers known as arks, where many humans were cryogenically frozen in order to preserve humanity from annihilation. You play the sole survivor of one of these arks, waking up 100 years in the future, and you soon realize that things haven't gone as smoothly as planned. Civilization is all but destroyed. Mutants and hostile factions roam the land, and with few humans alive after the catastrophe, survival is at a premium. As you no doubt already know, I'm a huge sucker for these post-apocalyptic storylines, and while it's likely fans will draw parallels with games like Fallout 3 and Borderlands, rest assured this is far from a mere clone, and I can't wait to see what Rage delivers. Now, coming in at reason number 14 is the fact that Rage isn't exclusively a first-person shooter. Okay, well, at its core, yes, Rage is a first-person shooter, but the developers at id Software have added some much-needed elements to make gameplay feel both enjoyable as well as varied. Without going into too much detail, some of the other elements in Rage include racing, vehicular combat, the chance to complete side quests, and the ability to continuously upgrade weapons and ammo. Now, coming in at reason number 13 is id Software's legacy for creating outstanding shooters. Over the years, id Software has become synonymous with perfecting the first-person shooter genre, most notably in the early 90s with Doom, but also with titles like Quake and Wolfenstein 3D. Every game that id Software has released into the market has effectively raised the bar for the first-person shooter, whether it be enhanced graphics, improved AI, or innovative gameplay, and Rage is no exception. But instead of resting on the laurels of their previous franchises, id Software has created a completely original game that players simply can't wait to get their hands on. And with the developer's track record for creating outstanding games, Rage is sure to turn a few heads. Now, coming in at reason number 12 is the fact that the requirements to play Rage on the PC are surprisingly sparse. Now, I'm not really good at memorizing specifications, so I'm just going to list the minimum specifications over to the side here. However, I recommend that if you want to play the game with enhanced graphics and faster load times, that you go for the recommended settings as set out by the manufacturer. Hopefully this will allow players to experience Rage even though their hardware might not be quite up to snuff. Now, coming in at reason number 11 is the iOS version of Rage for the iPad, iTouch, and iPhone. Say you want to play Rage but don't have an Xbox 360, PS3, or PC at your disposal. Well, players can experience all the fun of Rage with the Rage HD mobile app. The game functions as an on-rail shooter, and while players can't necessarily control their movements, they can control their aim and can either choose from a pistol, shotgun, or a machine gun to mow down mutants by the dozen. And for those not willing to shell out the dough for this game, players can experience Rage for only $2 US, a bargain at any price.
Welcome, ladies and gentle mutants, to the inaugural episode of Mutant Bash TV.
Now, coming in at reason number 10 is the source engine designed for Rage, known as the id Tech 5. One of the first things players will immediately notice about this game is just how stunning it actually looks, from its sprawling vistas to its highly detailed textures.
This is the first game that is going to use and fully explore the capabilities of John Carmack's id Tech 5.
The work that he does, the technology he creates, is just something that you wouldn't see elsewhere. And so a lot of it was just, how do we make something fun with this cool tech?
Now, id Software plans to use the source engine for its future first-person shooters, most notably Rage and the recently announced Doom 4. The engine will also support multi-threaded processing for many of its tasks, including rendering, AI, physics, game logic, and sound processing. It just goes to show you how much id Software raises the bar with each game it produces. Now coming in at reason number 9 is the multiplayer modes that will be available within Rage. Rage has 2 multiplayer modes, Combat Rally and Legends of the Wasteland. In Combat Rally, up to 6 players compete in a free-for-all match that takes place in an arena specifically designed to make use of the vehicles. The objective is to collect rally points that appear throughout the arena while simultaneously killing your opponents and stealing their points. Legends of the Wasteland, on the other hand, is a series of 2-player bonus co-op missions based on the stories that you hear about as you play through the single-player campaign. Now, while not a main component of the game, multiplayer is a welcome addition to this experience. Now, coming in at reason number 8 is the sheer diversity of enemies available within Rage. Now, 2 of the main enemies in the game will be the mutants on the one hand, and the many number of hostile factions that populate the wasteland on the other. Now, each of the factions within the games will not only look different based on, for example, what they're wearing, but also act different through subtle changes such as the way they move or the tactics they employ to try and kill you. For instance, the Gearhead clan will likely take a brute force tactic, carrying heavy weapons as well as advanced technology in order to defend themselves. While the Ghost clan is more stealthy and heavily acrobatic, often climbing up the walls and jumping off of them, and they're more likely to use melee weapons like knives and machetes.
But if you fight that enemy for 12 hours, I don't care how cool he was in hour 1, it's not going to be so cool in hour 12. So it's about mixing it up for the player. Not reinventing the rules, but give him something a little different around every corner, so that's what we strive to do.
Thankfully, unlike many copycat shooters, you won't be mowing down wave after wave of the same enemy, but rather different hostile groups, each with their own personalities and motivations. Now, ranking in at reason number 7 is the AI of the enemy characters. I think it goes without saying that the AI in Rage is going to be advanced. Players will have to use strategy as well as their own wits in order to outflank hordes of enemies. Thankfully, the developers at id Software have gone the extra mile utilizing motion capture technology in order to make character animations more realistic. If you shoot him in the leg, for example, he'll crawl away from you. If you shoot him in the arm, on the other hand, he'll still come swinging at you, only with his good arm. And with over 500 character animations available, each enemy's death will look both distinctive and new. Now, coming in at reason number 6 is the fact that Rage is an original FPS that's not part of an existing franchise. Look, don't get me wrong, I love first-person shooters, but let's be honest here, it's also one of the most oversaturated genres in the video game market today. I mean, after you play through the Battlefields and the Call of Duties and the Halos and the Gears of War and the Killzones and the Resistances and the Fallouts, you get kind of sick of it after a while. So to see a game that actually does something new and original is quite a breath of fresh air for a change. Now, I know some people are going to disagree with me on this one, but I thought it was worth noting. Now, ranking in at reason number 5 is the superb voice acting within the game. The developers at id Software have gone to great lengths to create realistic facial expressions and movements.
So here's what I need you to do. Head to where those bandits live and wipe them out, plain and simple.
Similarly, the lip-syncing of characters lines up perfectly with the dialogue being presented. I tell you, nothing takes me out of a game faster than stilted dialogue that doesn't sync up with the character speaking. But with excellent writers at id Software and the voice talents of such notable actors like John Goodman, really, what else can you ask for?
Initial images I saw of Dan Hagar, he had glasses, the shorts, the fishing vest, and I go, that totally reminds me of Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski. And I go, Tim, we need to get John Goodman.
Welcome to the future.
You can imagine if there was an actor from Hollywood that could survive an asteroid destroying the Earth, he would be on that list.
Get to town. It'll be safer there. I hear there's something special about you Ark people.
Now, coming in at reason number 4 is Rage's world building as well as the overall atmosphere of the game. You know, I don't know what it is about apocalyptic science fiction that gets gamers really excited, but I know that if great lengths aren't taken to make the setting believable, it'll really take the player out of the experience. Now, when I'm talking about atmosphere, I'm not simply speaking of the dirty, grimy landscapes that infest the world of Rage. That should be a given at this point. What I'm talking about is asking, does this world present a realistic, accurate depiction of what a future Earth would look like after such a catastrophe? And from what I've seen, I would say Rage does.
The Wasteland is more than just a setting for the story. It's its own gameplay level, for lack of a better word. It's the thing that stitches the story and it stitches the action all together.
Similarly, great efforts have been taken to make each area of the game look distinctive to keep the player interested. Now, coming in at reason number 3 is the Authority, and the Authority is basically a heavily armored, powerful military police force that's hell-bent on controlling the wastelands within Rage. Now, you might be asking yourself why I'm singling these enemies out compared to all the other ones. That's simply because it's likely that these will be the most difficult enemies to defeat within the game.
You don't know how lucky you are that the Authority hasn't found you yet. If the Authority catches you and you don't have anything they need, you'll be dead.
And with jetpacks on their back, the ability to call in reinforcements, advanced technology, as well as full body armor from head to toe, players will have to use stealth as well as strategy in order to fight them. Now, leading off the list at number 2 is vehicular combat. Players will have to utilize the many vehicles within Rage in order to get from one town to the other, and if you think this will be a simple drive in the park, think again. With other tribes vying for blood, vehicular combat will be a sizable component to Rage's gameplay. Players will have the ability to augment their cars with various items and upgrades, which they can gain through completing races as well as side missions. Now, while many developers would merely tack on driving to the main gameplay, considerable lengths have been given to make the driving in this game feel realistic as well as enjoyable, as the rocky terrain of a post-apocalyptic Earth is perfect for your Doom Buggy. Now, coming in at reason number 1 is the sheer arsenal of weapons that will be available within Rage. Rest assured that the number of ways to kill enemies within the game will be numerous and varied. And I'm not just talking about your standard pistols, shotgun, and machine guns. I'm talking sentry turrets. I'm talking robotic spiders that actively hunt and kill enemies, as well as RC cars that you control that are strapped with dynamite. Now, as with many first-person shooters, players will have the ability to purchase new weapons as well as upgrade their existing weapons in their inventory. But with ammo at a premium and currency in ever short supply, purchasing will require a lot of strategy. Do you go for the bigger gun that's more powerful, or do you conserve credits in favor of slowly augmenting your weapons? Whether players choose to go into an area guns blazing or whether they choose to adopt a more stealth-like approach, both will have to keep a keen eye on their inventories if they wish to survive. Rage is a welcome addition to id Software's lineup, and personally I can't wait to play this game for hours upon hours on end. As always, I'm the Millennium Gamer, signing off.